the millennial generation. Can we talk about them for a minute? The millennial generation, maybe more than any generation in the past, has gotten a bad rap for moving into their parents' basement, being video gamers, and that sort of thing. I mean, think about it. The millennials basically are the sons and daughters of baby boomers and older Gen Xers. But let me talk to you about why I think the millennials are going to lead us into the real estate market in 2021. 61% of first-time homebuyers are millennials, and 42% of all homebuyers are millennials, according to a dot loop study that's been done, and I'll link that below. Now, back in February, Realtor.com predicted that over 50% of the mortgage applications, purchase mortgage applications, would be millennials. That means that half of all the houses that are selling right now are because of millennials. And can we talk about what a millennial is? Well, a millennial is the largest living adult generation today. They average in age, some say 19, most say 22, 23 to 39 years old. And there's almost 80 million of them. They're the largest generation since what they call the baby boomers, or the greatest generation, right? In terms of the housing market, only about half of those 80 million have even started saving for a house. So here's an interesting thing I found. Apartmentlist.com, it talks about millennials, only 20% have saved enough money to put 20% down on a house. Now, putting 20% down on a house can be challenging, but we have more competitive programs. There's 5% conventional down payments. There's 3.5% FHA programs. There's 3% conventionals out there. So you have to check and see what loan products are available. But with those types of products, there are actually 40% of millennials that could buy a house today. 40%, that's 32 million people. Now, why do I think that millennials are going to rescue the potentially volatile market coming in 2020? Well, here's why. They got shafted, didn't they? They got shafted by the Great Recession. The folks coming out of the Great Recession 10, 12 years ago, they were right out of college, a lot of them. And the ones that were right out of college, what did they do? They couldn't find a job, so they did part-time work and that sort of thing, which also caused some fallout to the generation below them, right? Because if a 22-year-old is getting a job at Chick-fil-A, that means my 18-year-old cannot, or my 16-year-old cannot. So, but the millennials either went back to school and got graduate degrees, or they just kind of hung out, did odds and ends jobs until finally the jobs market came back. Once that jobs market came back, they roared in, and they're doing very well today. However, the millennials also did one more thing that's really important to consider. They get married later. 50 years ago, the average age of someone getting married was in their early 20s. Today, with millennials, it's somewhere in the 30 to 32-year-old mark. Well, if you think about it, right? Is there a reason to own? Do you have to own a house when you're in your 20s up to your late 20s and early 30s? Not necessarily, unless you want to, unless you're trying to build wealth or do something like that. However, those millennials getting married older also means they're having kids older. And what happens when you get married and you start to have kids and your kids start to go to school? That's right. You're going to want a really good school district for your kids. You want to probably move then to the suburbs, because that's where the best schools are, unless you're willing to dig in the local urban core and help make the schools better there. Okay? Millennials have more student debt, and they're trying to pay it off. And that's why a lot of them still can't afford to buy a house. The other thing about the millennials is they like nice things, right? They like nice things. They like what their parents liked. They like going to Starbucks. They like doing expensive things. They like hanging out with their friends. They like drinking and doing the things that people like to do, right? The problem with that is when you're starting out in your career, you may not have a lot of money. So if you go out with your friends all the time on the weekends, Friday and Saturday night, or Friday, Saturday, Sunday night, and you're going to a microbrewery or whatever, you're laying down 40, 50 bucks every time you go, all of a sudden, that takes your expendable income that you used to save for a house, and that kind of hurts you from buying a house. You know what? Since marriage has been delayed, so is having kids. If you have a kid, you're 6% more likely to buy a house, according to urban.org. And what your parents did also impacts what you do. So if your parents owned a property or a house growing up, then you're 9% more likely to buy one. So kids and your parents owning actually means you're 15% more likely to buy a house. And listen, today, single millennials, they like the urban core. I don't care what you say about all these people making a mass exodus from New York City because of a pandemic or all this other things. Look, people are moving out of New York City because they don't like to pay taxes. The pandemic might feed into it partially, but a lot of people are moving out of New York City because they want warmer weather, they want to be in a place that's a little bit more affordable, those sorts of things. I mean, at some point, right, affordability comes into play. And if you're going to pay $500,000 for 500 square feet in New York City, where you can buy a 5,000 square foot house in the suburbs of Atlanta, Georgia, I mean, at some point, you got to wake up and go, let's go do that. What I'm noticing in the suburbs lately is all of these microbreweries coming up. Why is that? Well, I don't necessarily go to a lot of microbreweries necessarily, but some of my younger friends do, and those younger friends happen to be millennials between 23 and 39 years old. And so what they're seeing is all of the microbreweries and such that are kind of cachet down in the city, they're starting to put those in the suburbs. And they find that millennials will actually come in from downtown Atlanta, in my case, and visit some of these other places and just kind of brewery hop. That's kind of a thing that they do. So in other words, all I'm saying is the suburbs are getting ready for you guys, and we're getting ready for you to come on board and buy more houses in the suburbs. And the urban core folks will still be there for a long time. And I honestly think that my kids, that are teenagers, they're gonna love the urban core until they get married, have kids, and then they have to figure out the school situation. It's the magic question that comes up in every single circumstance when you get married and have kids. What are we gonna do about the schools? And you have three choices. One, you put them in private school, it's expensive. Two, you move out to the suburbs, which is a little bit more expensive, but you get more house. Or three, you stay and you change things where you are. Now, I find most people don't do that. They're going to move up to the suburbs. They're going to send their kids to private school. That is why I think the millennials are going to drive the housing market in 2021. The interest rates are just too insanely low. And if you're going to live in a house 5 years or more, even if the houses are inflated just a little bit, but that payment is super low because of low interest rates, I would say take advantage of those rates. But you have to agree to live in the house 5 years, 7 years preferably, or more. And my guess is, if you're going to lay down some stable roots, that's exactly where you are. Hey, if you like this content, would you do me a favor? Subscribe to my YouTube channel so that I can make more content like this. And then just like this video, and I'd love it especially if you're a millennial, I want you to comment below and let me know what you think. All right, I'm Terry, the Real Estate Guy. Thanks again. Hope you have a great day.